top. This is a Ukrainian plane. They take, you know, anything. It's a cargo jet, and it's the largest cargo jet in the world. There's not very many of them, and during the war, some of them got destroyed. I'm wondering if this had anything to do with the SpaceX launch the other day that brought, you know, the astronauts back. Because it's coming from, it looks like Cape Canaveral, and because there's very few runways that these planes can land on because they're so massive. But there it is. I'm really glad that I was out here to see this go by. Oh, look at you. That is the cutest thing. Welcome to a new vlog. This is just really like a random vlog. There's not really a theme to it. We're going to be reading my nonfiction pick of the month. We might get into some other books, you never know. But I do want to go over the weekly TBR with y'all, but I do have the quote of the week here. Not one that I necessarily agree with. It's, "Why sometimes I've believed as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast," from Lewis Carroll, who wrote Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. Nothing's impossible, let me tell you. But also, if he's for writing his book, you never know. But let's see what I'm reading this week. First, we have Dawnland Voices, Anthology of Indigenous Writing from New England, and this is from the University of Nebraska Press. I am currently reading about the Maliseet people, who are in, again, New England. Why did I have to tell you where it is when it says it in the title? The main book of this vlog is Iron, Fire, and Ice, the Real History That Inspired Game of Thrones. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Discover the bloody battles and backstabbing royals that inspired George R. R. Martin's best-selling A Song of Ice and Fire series and the HBO smash hit Game of Thrones. So it's taking real instances in history and comparing it to Game of Thrones. Then we have my mood read, which is Very Sincerely Yours by Carrie Winfrey. This is a romance and it is so cute. Teddy Phillips never thought she would still be spending every day surrounded by toys at almost 30 years old. But working at a vintage toy store is pretty much all she has going on in her life after being unceremoniously dumped by her longtime boyfriend. The one joy that she has kept is her not-so-guilty pleasure, Everett's Place, a local children's show hosted by Everett St. James, a man whom Teddy finds very soothing and cute. A woman named Theodora starts writing to Everett. He is drawn to her honesty and vulnerability. They continue writing to each other, all the while living their lives without meeting. When their worlds collide, however, they must both let go of their fears and figure out what they truly want, and if the future they want includes each other. So I should finish both of these books in this vlog. Now we have my ebook, and that is Diana Gabaldon's Go Tell the Bees That I Am Gone. This is the 9th book in the Outlander series, and it's following a family during the American Revolution. It's very genre bending, but I'm going to say it has some time travel elements involved, and that is the weekly TBR for this week. And happy St. Patrick's Day, by the way. Here to talk about Fire and Ice. Let's see, where did I put this? We're gonna go through my notes. So this is 3-star vibes. I don't really do decimal ratings on nonfiction. Sometimes I do, but with this I'm not feeling like doing that. And I read 84 pages today, getting me to like 75%, a little over, a little less. I don't remember exactly. But I'm just gonna read y'all the tabs that I marked. These are things I found interesting. We have Milanese Valentina Visconti mentioned. Y'all know I love the Sforza family, want to know everything about them, and therefore they are greatly linked with the Visconti family because it kind of, the Sforzas kind of took the Visconti's place. So she is the sister-in-law to the King of France, and I wanted to make note of that. And then again, so we see, we're talking about mad kings, and we have Charles of France. I'm not remembering which number of Charles he was. English, they've done a good job of clarifying the Henrys, but I'm not seeing for Charles. But he kind of, it sounds like dementia, but he was young. He didn't know his own children, although he recognized brothers and uncles. And much to the queen's rage, the only person he would talk to was his brother's now estranged wife, Valentina, who he called dear sister. Naturally, many believed she had bewitched him with poison, and that sounds right up my alley, so I'm definitely going to have to look more into her later. Then we had this tab, so we're talking, this chapter is called The Death of Kings, but with carrier pigeons, and because in Game of Thrones they use ravens, but in the real world it was pigeons. And the longest recorded flight for a trained pigeon by the U.S. Army Signal Corps was an astounding 2,300 miles. That is insanity to me. Like, I need the whole story behind that little pigeon doing all of that. And then we're talking about how there were, you know, like border feuds. And this is from the Curse of the Kingslayer chapter. And this is talking about the Scotch and Irish settlers who, you know, the ancestors. But it says many historians and sociologists view the persistently higher rates of violence among southern whites compared to northerners as being related to the honor culture of the borders, which encouraged a readiness to commit violence and to become engaged in blood feuds rather than resort to law. So if you're with the border feuds between like England and Scotland and, you know, so forth all around the British Isles, that led to Southern culture, I guess, to some aspects of Southern culture. I don't know if I necessarily agree with this. I'm not sure if I agree with it or not. It's one I'm gonna have to think about. What's this blue tab over here? Yes, this sounds familiar. So despite the horror in Normandy, France's leading aristocrats hated each other too much to do anything. Think of people on top here, you know, do they really care about the average man's problem? That's a big thing here about that when you have the players in the Game of Thrones being, you know, the nobility, the kings and queens, when they fight, it is the lesser man, you know, the common man who gets hurt in the long run. And then this tab here is the last one. And what I think of this book, I think this book is an introduction, therefore being really accessible to medieval history for fantasy readers or watchers, depending if you've read or watched the show of Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire. I think this is a great introduction because we're just going basically all through medieval history, really with England and France, because their histories are so intertwined. And I know a lot of this stuff, but I'm also learning a lot, like some of the stuff that I told y'all today. Like I was talking about the Visconti family. I didn't realize how influential they were, I guess, because their daughters were all being sent out to marry these powerful men. You know, the French royal family, Roman Empire, and just so on, even was offered to an English king. So I didn't know all of that about the Visconti family, and I hope to learn more because they're one of my fascinations in history. Maybe chat with y'all later. I don't think I will because I'm at 80% in here, so I'm not going to update y'all on that book till I'm finished, and I'm not finishing that book tonight. At least I don't think I am. That'd be cool if I did, but I don't think I am. There are several things I'd like to talk about this Tuesday. It is kind of dark because I've been reading in my reading corner and it's still light outside, but you know, kind of the sun's going down. I want to talk about my brackets for March Madness of who I have like winning both sides, or both, you know, men and women. So my final four for the men's NCAA tournament 2025, I have Louisville and Florida, then Duke and UCLA, with Louisville and Duke playing in the final, with Duke winning. I feel like this just will be Duke's year. And then for the women's, the final four, I have UCLA, UConn, South Carolina, and Texas, with UCLA and South Carolina being the final two, with South Carolina winning. And how many total points will be scored in the championship game? I think 123. We will have to see where all of that goes. But also something kind of strange happened today. So they have been cutting the trees near the power lines. So like when a storm happens, because hurricane season is approaching, that they don't want, you know, limbs to fall on the lines and cause power outages and all that. Well, that happened. So at 1:33, I was typing up stuff on my computer And Fred was, you know, making bread with his ghost pillow, and I heard this loud explosion, and I was like, so I knew they were doing construction and all, so it's like, it's probably something like that. But then I noticed the Wi-Fi wasn't working because I couldn't, you know, work on what I was working on, and I was like, that sucks. And I went to check my security camera footage, but you know, the Wi-Fi wasn't working, so I couldn't see it. Then later, when I went to go heat up my lunch, I saw the microwave clocks and all had been reset, so the power had gone out, and I just had to boot this up. So if you hear kind of, you know, electrical noises or computer noises, I don't know what to call that. If you hear that, that is because the power had gone on and I just had to turn the computer back on. So a limb probably fell on a transformer and blew it up. But so that was all for that. Now I want to talk about my reading with Iron, Fire, and Ice. I only have about 20 pages, or about 25 pages left, so we will be finishing this tomorrow. I read 86 pages today, getting to 94%. Why did I not go ahead and finish it? Because I don't want to pressure myself. I don't want to, you know, I don't want to overdo it. So our first tab is about Christine de Pizan, who was born in Italy in 1364. So she actually was one of the most significant female writers of the medieval period. She wrote 41 books, and she did this because she needed to support her children because she was a widow, and support her mother and her niece. But among those books was the Book of the City of Ladies, set in a hypothetical city in which women's views are taken seriously. Like, this was in the 13 or 1400s. Women have been writing these kind of stories that long. It's just crazy to think about. Then we had a whole section about Cersei, who, again, I have a Cersei figure back there. She's one of my favorite mythological figures, even though I didn't love that book too much. And then this part is just for me for future reference. So in 1320, Pope John the 22nd, might be wrong on that, ordered that magic books be burned. So I thought that was kind of interesting. It's something I want to look more in on. And then in this one, this was about the Crusades. And when I learned about the Crusades in school, or like maybe not even in school, just from being alive, that it was Jews and Christians and Muslims all are fighting over the same land, and you know, it's still happening thousands of years. That says happened thousands of years, but you know, 700 years later. Again, this is something I really need to educate myself more on. So there was an infamous incident. A large German pilgrimage came under attack from locals in Palestine. Then Jerusalem finally fell. The Crusaders massacred most, if not all, of the city's Muslims and Jews. So not just one sect, but both. Now with all these genocide talks, it's one or the other. So it was kind of crazy to see the Christians or Catholics were like, we're taking out both. So the Crusades were created, or the Knights of the Templar were created to protect Christian pilgrims. And I did not realize all of that. Now let's go here. This is a tab just about thoughts on the book. Is I think this section didn't flow up because we went back in time again to the late Knights of the Templar. So we went back like 100 years, 200 years. So I wish this book was told in more of a chronological order of all of Europe. So I just think it needs to be edited because of the order. And then I have even spotted one typo in the book where it was like, there should have been a space between two words, but there wasn't. So I do think this book needed a little bit better editing. And then what's this tab? And so John of Gaunt, who I am descended from, had 4 bastards by his mistress, Catherine Swynford. Once they were married, the Pope had declared the children legitimate, and they became the House of Beaufort. So I never realized that Margaret Beaufort comes from a bastard line, even though it was legitimized. So just how we see her portrayed in media, I'm like, she came from a bastard line, and she's like all high and mighty. I just thought that was kind of interesting. About the Kings of the North, so the Neville family, who were just one of the big families of the time. In reality, all of the noble families in England were of Norman descent through the male line, since the Normans had effectively decapitated English society, killing thousands at Hastings and Circle, right here, disinheriting the others. So I'm like, what happened to those other families who, during Saxon times, they must have been noble families, but if they weren't killed and all, did they go down to being nothing? It would be a great story of seeing a family who's going from being a noble family to not. I would love to see a story about that. So if you know of any, let me know. One exception were the Nevilles, who could trace their lineage back to the old kingdom of the north. So they, Fitzmildred was one of their ancestors who, yeah, there's so many greats, I'm not going to count on that, but who through his mother was descended from Uhtred. I don't know if it's Uhtred like we see on The Last Kingdom, or yeah, The Last Kingdom, but Uhtred the Bold, Earl of Northumbria, whose family's seat was Bamberg. So like the Starks, the Nevilles were descended from the old kings of the north. Like them, could imagine their forefathers sitting on the same land under the same stars many centuries before. So I like that writing. And I think that is all. So yeah, those are all of my notes in Iron, Fire, and Ice for the day. This neckline of this shirt is so weird. I'm going to keep messing with it. It's a shirt I got in like high school or middle school. I don't remember, but I don't remember the neckline being like this. I don't know if when it last got washed, if something happened, can that happen? Like changing necklines. But I finished Very Sincerely Yours, and I figured we would do like a call pal thing again, like we did ice cream carton, like we did a few with the women. I figured we would do that again. So characters is what comes first, and characters, I already know I'm going to give the characters a 5-star. I really loved this cast of characters. Maybe I should hold the book when I'm talking about it. I just saw myself in all of them, even the side characters. They were all so relatable, and this book made me realize that fiction can help you understand the people around you, why people make the choices that they do. And that was just such an eye-opening event for me. But there is one thing with the characters. I think Everett's like friends, like his cast of side characters, were a bit underdeveloped because I was getting them confused and wish that there was better descriptions and everything of them. But something else that I loved with the characters, and I guess this could fall into plot as well, is they both had their own stories going on, where we have Teddy, who is coming out of a relationship that she thought was a good relationship. She thought it was successful and everything, but unceremoniously she gets dumped, and she's now having to try to put her life together and find out who she is as a person on her own and not just being somebody's girlfriend. Then we have Everett, who is a workaholic and maybe trying to get out of that and trying to see where he wants his career to go from here. And I feel like there was a little bit more I wanted to say about him. Oh, that he's having like a creative block like I just was, where he is trying to, like, I'm going to say he's a bit of a perfectionist. We're going to go with that. So that's the characters of 5. Atmosphere, I'm going to give a 4. At first, I was like, the atmosphere isn't playing a huge part. I would give it a 3. But then just the more ingrained I got in the story, the vibes, the tone, I was like, oh my gosh, I actually am loving this atmosphere. We are set in Columbus, Ohio, and I don't think that plays a huge part, but there is such a nostalgic kind of vibe because our female character, main character, works in a vintage toy shop. So think of from your childhood, toys from back then. And then Everett, he is like Mr. Rogers, like he is the main guy on a children's television show. So there are those kind of nostalgic vibes. This is like a fall Halloween vibe. This is taking place in fall time, during the fall time. And I love that. There was like Bath and Body Works candles, throw pillows, Halloween. I love that time. And that's also fall and spring are the seasons I factor with nostalgia the most. So I loved the atmosphere. Now the writing, again, this is going to be a 4. The writing itself this is how I would write a book. It's blunt, to the point, tells you everything that you need to know, except we do have parentheses, and that is why I cannot give this a 5-star in the writing category, because the use of parentheses, I was just like, we do not need all of this. Like, one had to say that the Muppets were puppets, like, we know that. And like, just things that weren't necessary and didn't add anything to the story. I just thought they were unnecessary, and I didn't like reading about that. I loved the sense of humor. I think if you are like in your 20s or something, like I think this will be your kind of sense of humor. Like, you know how people talk about like millennial books? Oh yeah, these characters are like in their late 20s, early 30s. So there is going to be like kind of that millennial vibe, millennial sense of humor again with like the Bath and Body Works and the throw pillows, that very basic millennial style that is in here. But I loved that. I loved it. And again, as I said, I really like the tone of this book. It really just feels like a rom-com. Zoe, it's not Zoe Deschanel, it's another one. Her last name starts with a D. She's in Everybody Wants Some. And then what was also another movie with Glenn Powell? What was the one that was like a rom-com and like Lucy Liu is in it? And they like all worked at like ESPN or something. It wasn't really ESPN. And they'd go to a Yankees game. Zoe Dutch? Not remember her name, but that is who I would cast as Teddy. And then as our main character, I really don't know who I would cast as ever. Like I can see him in my mind, but I don't know what actor I would cast as him. But okay, that was getting kind of sidetracked. With the plot, again, we're going to go with a 4 because, okay, this is super cute how well, again, they both had their own things going on. I think that falls into the plot as well. And then with how they meet, like the emails and everything, which I don't know, because it says You've Got Mel somewhere. Yeah, You've Got Mel as touch. So I've never seen that. I've never really been a big rom-com person, to let y'all know, but this they're exchanging emails and all. To me, that was really unique, and this was just a really unique take on a romance and was unlike any that I've read before. And it didn't really heavily rely on tropes, which is something that is different for romance. But at the end, like the last 20%, maybe even the last, we're gonna say 15%, was very dramatic, and it was just kind of a snap. There was a lot of anger and again just a lot of dramatic stuff, and I really didn't like that. It didn't fit the vibe and tone of the rest of the book, and it was just making me roll my eyes, and I didn't like that. That ruined my enjoyment factor. Let's talk about pacing, because again, I think that can fall in writing or plot. Is the first again, I'm going to say the first 80%, incredibly well paced, and it was short chapters, very easy to read, and I could read about, 30 to 40 pages in one sitting, and that's about a page a minute, maybe even a little less than that. So it was incredibly quick to read, but I do think this story did go on a little too long. I would say this is a tad slow burn with the romance, and also with the romance, it's like closed door. It's not spicy, so if you don't want sex scenes and all, I would recommend this, because you're not going to get that here. This is more of an emotional romance than a physical romance. But the pacing, so yes, I do think this book was a tad too long, and especially just the end with the third act breakup and all. I really didn't like that, and I don't like how it was handled. So we're gonna go to intrigue. Again, I think because 80% of it, I do think the intrigue was good. I'm gonna give that a 4. And logic, again, I think we would say that is a 4, just because a lot of it does make sense. I do think these characters are mature, but again, the ending, I wasn't a huge fan of the ending. And enjoyment, I'm gonna give a 5, because I was giggling, or I wasn't giggling, I was squealing, wanting to kick my legs in the air. Like, I was having those emotions. This was really warm feelings. So let's do the call pal here and see what we're going to get when we add all these together.
So 5 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 5
is 30 divided by 7, which is a 4.28. So a 4.25. Yes, I did love this book, and I would highly recommend that you pick it up. And I'm going to go look up more books by Carrie Winfrey, which I'm seeing Waiting for Tom Hanks, which I remember when that came out. I was kind of turned off by having a real person's name there, but we'll just see how it goes. Happy Wednesday. I just got in from reading it. That pollen is something else. Like, before I went out there, I did not feel congested, but now, like, my throat, my nose, like, I feel like coughing. My nose feels stuffy. I was having the, like, I had the sniffles when I was out there. And then I'm also hot as well, because it was, I know the high today was 78. I don't know what it actually ended up being, but I'm sweaty and then all congested, so that's fun. But I did finish Iron, Fire, and Ice, The Real History That Inspired Game of Thrones by Ed West. I'm giving this a 3-star. This is a good book and I would recommend it, but I would probably recommend checking it out from your library or doing the ebook or audiobook because, yeah, it's a good book, but not a great book. I do think this is a great starting place if you're not really familiar with medieval history, particularly, that's not how you say that, but England and France. You learn a lot about that in here because, so if you are like a fantasy reader, if you are a fan of like Game of Thrones, obviously like don't read this if you haven't seen or read Game of Thrones because there's going to be spoilers for the series. It's just a good entry point for people who don't know that much about actual history, or maybe don't read historical nonfiction but have read fantasy and have read or watched Game of Thrones in the past. And I do think this would be a good pickup for you to learn about the medieval time period. Now, I did have some problems with the editing. I wish this was more in a chronological order of the history because it felt really sporadic, because sometimes we would go back 200 years and I'm like, why didn't you just say that earlier when we were talking about that time period? And then I did spot a few typos, but overall I do think this was a good book and I did learn a lot. So I read 23 pages in there today. At 6 o'clock, I'm going to be starting an audiobook, and that will be Before We Were Yours by Lisa Wingate. And when we get closer to 6 o'clock, I will tell you what this book is all about in our next clip. This is when I forgot to tell y'all what this book is actually about. I totally meant to film that. So this is set in Memphis in 1939. 12-year-old Ruel Foss and her 4 younger siblings live a magical life aboard their family's Mississippi River shanty boat. But when their father must rush their mother to the hospital one stormy night, Ruel is left in charge until strangers arrive in force. Wrenched from all that is familiar and thrown into a Tennessee Children's Home Society orphanage, the Foss children are assured that they will soon be returned to their parents. But they quickly realize the dark truth. At the mercy of the facility's cruel director, Ruel fights to keep her sisters and brother together in a world of danger and uncertainty. Aiken, South Carolina, present day. Born into wealth and privilege, Avery Stafford seems to have it all. A successful career as a federal prosecutor, a handsome fiancé with a lavish wedding on the horizon. How much are we going to bet that that wedding doesn't go through? But okay. But when Avery returns home to help her father weather a health crisis, a chance encounter leaves her with uncomfortable questions and compels her to take a journey through her family's long-hidden history on a path that will ultimately lead either to devastation or to redemption. Based on America's most notorious real-life scandal, one of America's most notorious real-life scandals, in which Georgia Tan, director of a Memphis-based adoption organization, kidnapped and sold poor children to wealthy families all over the country. Lisa Wingate's riveting, wrenching, and ultimately uplifting tale reminds us how even though the paths we take can lead to many places, the heart never forgets where we belong. And this book had like a 4.4 on Goodreads, and it was the winner for historical fiction in 2017 for the Goodreads Choice Awards. Now, I don't know how legit that is, if it's a good book or not, because there's been some, you know, people question about the Goodreads Choice Awards. But yeah, I was just filming a cute clip showing y'all me getting ready, and I was like, oh, I have not told y'all what this book is about, but I'm going to be doing the audiobook with this as well. I've given Lisa Wingate a 5-star in the past, so are we gonna have a repeat of The Women, or am I going to love this? It is time to do our nightly reading update. Let me get the dust jacket over here, get all my belongings together like I'm leaving a plane. But okay, we're talking about Before We Were Yours. I got to 15%, which was 52 pages read, so there's my planner so I can put it in there. We're going to go through the tabs. So we're still too early for me to know like what I'm going to rate this book. Like, it's good so far. Like, I'm only 50 some pages into a 339 page book, so I don't know what I'm going to rate it or anything like that, but I do want to go through my notes, and I do want to show you all the title page with the trees and all. That's super pretty. And let's see which is the first. So Pink's only is the first tab. I liked the writing of this. I have learned that most people get along as best they can. They don't intend to hurt anyone. It is merely a terrible byproduct of surviving. And yes, I completely agree with that statement there. And then on the next page, again, I liked this writing, so I should have done it in green rather than pink. But it says, so there's this woman who is going through a very like troublesome labor, and it says, all slips in and slips away. It's as if she is attempting to catch the tide, and it drains through her clenched fingers. Finally, she floats out along with it. So I thought that was really good. And then this is a common theme from books I've read lately. I only think when that keeps coming up, it's what like God, the universe, whatever is telling you, like, you need to pick up on this. And it's about people who are, there's this destined life for them, but is that really what they want? Because other people are being like, you need to do this, you need to do this, but it's like, is that really what you want? We saw this in Very Sincerely Yours, and now we're seeing it in Before We Were Yours. So we have Avery, who her dad is a senator, and I always get confused of what's a senator, what's representatives. So I'm going to say politician names. I'm not endorsing these people, but like in my state, like Lindsey Graham is somebody, and then Nancy Mace. And I know Nancy Mace isn't as high as Lindsey Graham, so like what? I don't know what this level is. I'm picturing like Lindsey Graham level, so I don't know. A senator, and she's expected to take that role after him. In like the government and everything, so she has to go back and live in South Carolina for like it's a year or 2 years that you have to prove residency. So she's like, is that really the life that I want? Do I want to go into politics? It says, of course you want this. I tell myself, you've always wanted this. You just didn't expect it to happen yet, and not this way. That's all. So she's trying to reassert herself, like, yeah, this is the life that I want, but is it really? About care for elders in nursing homes that I think are state facilities, which I don't know anything about. I'd like to know more. So, but with this first chapter, I don't know if it's the first chapter, or yeah, so in chapter 1, the intrigue is really strong. We have them going to this nursing home, because as I said, they're doing stuff with the nursing homes, because the nursing homes, are not treating these people well, these state-run nursing homes, and stuff with like Medicaid and all of that, and that's stuff that I don't know about. But the intrigue is really strong because we have Avery, who is our modern day character. She's there, and this old woman goes and grabs her arm, just saying, like, Fern, Fern. Her name's Avery, her name's not Fern. She's like, what is this lady's deal? She doesn't say that, but there's that intrigue of, okay, who is Fern? Who is Fern? Who is May? May is the old woman. And what is the connection going to be between these two plot lines, the one we have in the 1930s and then the one we have in the 2010s? Now we go to chapter 2, and I was like, we're still in Aiken in the present day, which, as I said, was 2019. And I wasn't expecting to have multiple POVs in the same time or place. I thought it was just going to be two POVs, but turns out May is real, who we're introduced to, in the description of the book. This is literally 14 pages into the book. I don't think it's a spoiler. I think that Judy, who is Avery's grandmother, is going to be Fern, and therefore Fern being May's sister. I don't know. That's just my theory. Again, only 24 pages into the book. I have no evidence of this. They are at the nursing home, Avery and her father, who is the senator. They meet Andrew Moore, who is the program coordinator for the host of today's forum, a Seniors' Rights PAC. I never hear about seniors' rights. This is like the first time it's come to my mind or come to my attention. It's definitely something I'm gonna have to look into. But it says he seems likable, honest, energetic, committed, and I'm like, they're gonna end up together. Lastly, we have Avery. Sorry, their names. I'm having to get used to the names. There's so many names in this book. Avery is looking through May's room a little bit at the nursing home, and we have this bracelet that is like a family heirloom in Avery's family, and I think when she's looking through May's room, she's going to find like a picture of it or something in May's old photographs, which I don't have any answer to that if that's happened. But those are my notes so far, and Before We Are Yours, I don't have any strong opinions or anything yet. But that is, you know, my thoughts on what I read today. I just finished my ice cream and I was watching YouTube. And I'm not in my skirt anymore because this is my one. I got this last year, maybe the year before, but it's too small, especially when I'm bloated. So I need to, do y'all know if Abercrombie's still doing these high-rise skirts? Are they still making those? Because I would like another one, but this one's too small for me. Let's talk about what I am starting next. This is very different from everything else we're reading. This is kind of horror, kind of sci-fi. I think I bought it in the horror section, but with a lot of those horror genre, I feel like it can kind of creep into other genres as well. But this is The Marigold by Andrew F. Sullivan. This might be indie published. It kind of just has that feel to it. And there was this stuff of global certified accessible ebooks for free, all this Canada stuff that I've never seen in a book before. All of this. Not sure what all of that is about. So yeah, you can get the ebook for free online, which I'm not going to do since I have this copy, but I want to tell y'all what it is about. In a dystopian near-future Toronto, the Marigold, a gleaming condo tower, sits a half-empty promise, a stack of scruffed rental suites and undelivered amenities that crumbles around its residents as a mysterious sludge spreads slowly through it, rotting the building from within. While most surrender to the mold, I guess that's how you say that, too worn down to fight its hold on the city, some rise against it. But is Toronto already too far gone? I remember when I purchased this book, some of you guys commented saying that you enjoyed it, so that obviously is exciting to know that you guys enjoyed it. How long is this book? If it's moody, yeah, I was like, it's going to be under 400 pages. It's 347. And it's Canadian, which is cool because we don't really read that many Canadian books that I can think of at the moment. And Toronto is a very nice place. That is the city in North America, we're going to say, because I have been to Italy, but this is the city with the best food that I've been to in North America. Just, oh my gosh. And it was like basic things, you know, like Irish pubs, wings joints, like those kind of basic places. It was just so good. We appreciate that. Again, I'm sorry I'm congested. I saw a picture of an alligator here that was just covered in pollen, and it's crazy. Oh yeah, I wanted to tell y'all, I started The White Lotus season 1 last night. I don't think I've talked about it in the vlog because I've told like everybody else. Not really everybody else, I've told 2 people. But I started The White Lotus last night, and it's given 3-star vibes. Like I think I did tell y'all about this. I think I did. That it's given 3-star vibes, but since it's so popular, I'm going to be continuing. I think I did tell y'all about that. I think I told y'all. I didn't turn the light on, but happy Thursday. I got to 25% in Dawnland Voices. I'm currently on the section about the, it usually says on the bottom what section I'm on. The Passamaquoddy. I'm not sure if that's how you say that. This one didn't have a pronunciation listed, but this is like 3-star vibes because the like nonfiction parts are dual read like Wikipedia articles, but then I love the poetry that has been in here, and obviously I love the concept of this book. Time for the last reading update of the vlog, but first, my dad got me this Panda Express sticker today, and isn't it the cutest little thing? Because he like, he saw where they were having like job interviews or something, and like they had a table set up, and I guess they were giving out these stickers. So that is so cute. I personally don't really like Asian food that much, but I mean, look at him. Look at him. I can't wait to put that in my planner. We are going to do our last update of the vlog for Before We Were Yours. I got to 40%, which was 87 pages read today, and it's not wanting to stand up. Let's go through the notes. Still like 3-star vibes. The writing style is very similar to Kristen Hanna's writing style. I know we read one of her books like last week. So if you like Kristen Hanna's writing, then you might want to give Lisa Wingate a chance. let's see what my notes were. Where is my tabs are about to fall out. Where did we start today? Today was day 2, right? Yeah. The first one is I liked this writing here. The sun, and this is in Real's point of view, chapter 6. The sun is warm, the song sparrows sing, and the fat bass jump out of the water. A flock of white pelicans fly over in a big old arrow shape pointing north, which means the whole summer is still ahead of us. There's not a paddle wheeler or a flatboat or a tug or a barge in sight anywhere. The river is ours. So picturesque. I do think this is pretty picturesque writing, like not as in these scenes are pretty, but I'm saying like it's very picturesque writing that way, and I really like the part about the river being ours. But one thing I've noticed, all that I just read you, I think was, yeah, it was a dream sequence. There's no real transition. You see it's in the same type, the same font as the normal, like real life. And again, when we go back to like chapter 1 or 2 of the book, when we're going from the past to present, there was no real transition. I do think that can be kind of clunky and confusing. I am doing the audiobook, and you know, there's no real like it's hard to tell the difference. That's one issue I have found with this writing, is the transitions aren't done that well. Let's see what other tabs I have here. Again, the color of the tabs, they mean nothing. I used to, but not anymore. And now I'm wondering who ratted them out on page 63, you know, because we know like the child catcher, I don't know what to call these people. They think they're the police, but I honestly think it's, you know, people impersonating police officers. I'm just making theories at this point of who ratted them out. We see how I told y'all about that picture and all that. Now, how did that picture get where it got to? That's something that I am wondering as well. Some more intrigue. Now we have 2 notes on this page. Grandma Judy's reaction to some of Avery. I don't know why I'm so bad with these names, but Grandma Judy's reaction to Avery, asking her about May and all of this. Very interesting. This had me like being like, what's going to happen here? And something about like Southern culture, it's like, wonderful to know you. I can't do a Charleston accent, I'm sorry. That's the thing with this book, they all had like Charleston accents, especially on the audiobook, and I'm like, no, that's not how people, and the mom is from North Carolina. I'm like, that's not how people talk. No. But it's like, wonderful to know you. Isn't this a lovely day? Now tell me, who are your people? I've never heard it explicitly asked, like, who are your people? It may be like, I mean, people will ask about your family, but I've never seen it so bluntly like that. And I think it personally goes back to the Scottish influence in the South, the Scotch-Irish influence of like, who's your clan? And all of that. Avery is one of those characters, speaking of Scotland, like Claire from Outlander, who she just has to get into trouble. She has to put her nose where it doesn't need to go. And I'm not saying like, I hate her because of that. I honestly don't really feel anything. If there's something going on here, I'm better off knowing about it. Then I can decide what needs to be done. Wouldn't Claire from Outlander say the same thing? And there are definitely like Pat Conroy vibes here. Not Beach Music. What is the other one? It might be Beach Music, because he reused tropes a lot. If it's not that one, then it's the Prince of Tides. The Prince of Tides, is that what it's called? It's one of those. Is the vibes I have that book over there. I think my mirror is in front of it. But one of those, it reminds me of that. And then I looked and I saw that Lisa Wingate's work has won or been nominated for the Pat Conroy Southern Book Prize. It's fitting. And this quote, isn't this the truth? We plan our days, but we don't control them. Don't we wish we could? And then there's this part of her, you know, questioning her engagement. And y'all know how much that annoys me. Why can nobody in a book have a happy relationship? Sorry for my mad dog moment there. It's like, did she really feel that way? Did she really just know it was right when she met my grandfather? Should Elliot and I have experienced some sort of lightning bolt moment rather than the relaxed drift from childhood adventures to adult friendship to dating to engagement? Because after 6 years of dating, it seems like it's time. Is there something wrong with us because we haven't tumbled in head first, because we're not in a rush? And I'm like, why? Why can nobody be in happy relationships? Why is that so hard to write? So we're seeing, you know, about these children being at this this adoption center. I don't really think that would be the proper term, but I don't know what a term for this kind of place. They're at like a children's home. If we go back to May's chapters later on, it's like the nursing home is that same kind of thing again, where she's imprisoned because she's somewhere where she can't leave because of she's Alzheimer's, maybe something like that. She can't leave and is basically like locked in this place, and that's very similar to being at the children's home. She's a little girl. She can't just go leave on her own. I don't know if that's intentional, but I do think there are similarities there. And for some reason, I'm getting like Cruella vibes. If you've seen that movie, it's one of my personal favorites. Like the woman who plays the Duchess is who I would cast for Miss Tan. And then the way Riggs, was that his name? He's creepy. Yeah, Mr. Riggs, he's creepy. But I was picturing the guy who's friends with Cruella, the bigger guy. I don't remember his name, but that actor has been in several things I've watched, and that was who I was picturing. And then it was like, oh, he might not be a good person. Let's see what else. Oh, okay, yeah, it said this guy that Avery's meeting up with, who was like a real estate agent or something, he played basketball at Clemson. And when I'm filming this and when I was reading this, Clemson lost in March Madness, and the what did I say, in the last hour. Nobody I know had McNeese, is that how you say it, beating Clemson. I was the only person who had McNeese beating Clemson. And now I hate when people celebrate about one game, but when it's your most hated team, sorry, I have like stuff on my lip, but when it's your most hated team, who gets beat? Celebration! And being the only one who was right out of your friends and family, it feels good. It feels good. But I can also admit defeat today, because I had Louisville going to the finals and they got beat by Creighton, which both are kind of basketball schools. Creighton's definitely a basketball school. Louisville, I think back to the guy who like his bone went out of his leg. But I also think football with Louisville. Lamar Jackson played there. So it's a toss-up with Louisville. And then our next point, again, I told y'all she was meeting with a real estate agent. I feel a spark of something. Should an engaged woman, even a lonely one, be reacting this way? Maybe it's just because Elliot and I have barely talked in almost 2 weeks. I'm like, no, it's gonna be a love triangle. Just no. And lastly, did I not put a, I totally did not put a tab when I meant to, but the children are at like this party. I'm getting Epstein vibes, if I'm being honest with y'all, but a party, and it's like a viewing. I think they called it a viewing, but they also said party as well, where it's seeing, these are stolen children, that this is human trafficking, and they are seeing, trying to find families for them, families. And this man is like, and how old are you? And how old, the man asks, are you? And I'm like, creep. I'm worried for our character. I'm worried for her. And that is all. Sorry. That was kind of unhinged. I kind of got unhinged there for a book that I'm just, it's a good book. Not my favorite book, but it's good. I think this is a good book. I would probably still recommend it. But I'm going to be doing our wrap up here. Have we read over 100 pages every day this week? We have. I have not hauled any books this week. I will be going to the little free library, one of them tomorrow. Maybe I'll get something there. That one's been hit or miss. It's usually been pretty good, but lately I haven't been able to find anything that I want. Today was technically the first day of spring as well, but what is next week's vlog going to be about? It is going to be a reset, so preparing for the reading month of April. What book am I going to be reading? It's probably going to be Good Life, Mississippi, which is not really that well known of a book, but it was one of the highest rated historical fiction books on my TBR because there were so few ratings, but those few ratings were high ratings. This book is about a little girl growing up in the mid-century, so the like 50s, 60s, that time period, but she is mixed race and Mississippi in that time period. Need I say more? And that is the next one on my TBR. I also have a graphic novel by Marjane Satrapi, which was like Chicken and Plums, something like that. That is about a famous Iranian musician who has to choose. He has to make some big choices in his life. I will be reading both of those next week. I should finish this one over the weekend, looking like Sunday most likely. I don't know what my reading times on Saturday are going to look like. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you made it all the way through, leave a green emoji in the comments below. I hope you all had a happy St. Patrick's Day this week and a happy first day of spring. And as always, comment, rate, and subscribe. And don't forget to ring that notification bell to be notified when all my videos go live. I'll see you in my next one. Bye! The tripod looks like it's way over. I don't know if the vacuum moved it. I really need to organize over here anyway, but where did my pen go? I also lost my pen. This is not good. So I use this pen for literally everything. Where did this go? Hold on. Okay, I went under my bed. The vacuum goes here every week, so I don't know why. Oh guys, I got pizza sauce on there, but okay. The vacuum goes here every week, so I don't know why this week it moved everything around. That's kind of annoying, but I'm gonna use this tie to go stick. I know, again, there's a bunch of random stuff from the vacuum that got, you know, knocked down. I am going to fix my sleeve, then go eat my dinner. And oh my gosh, I told my dad to be quiet, but he's like watching Robin Williams stuff, and I'm like, dude, you're wearing me out with it. Like, he kept showing me this, telling me about this one video. Okay.